Strobe Studios presents Michael Helgens and Greg Kilberger in The Watson Files. Coming to you from the illustrious Strobe Studios in the heart of America, this is Craig Dahlen. And now, let's join the doctor and see what story he has for us today.
Come in.
Good evening, Doctor.
Yes, hello, Craig. How are you this evening?
Oh, I'm doing well, thank you. And how are you?
I am doing quite well, thank you, Craig. I understand we're going to be doing a live show at the end of this month. Is that correct, Craig?
Yes, it's going to be on June 23rd at Uptown Bill's in Iowa City.
And where can someone find out more details about this exciting event?
Well, just go to strobestudios.com.
Excellent.
Indeed. So, what story do you have for us tonight?
Tonight I'm going to tell you about a difficult case involving a murder victim with only one hand.
Did he have both hands before he was murdered?
He did indeed, and the missing hand was one of the more perplexing aspects of the case.
Well, that does sound quite intriguing. So, why did the murderer remove his victim's hand?
Well, that was the real question from the onset. Holmes was called onto the case privately by the governor, and he asked me to tag along.
The governor?
Yes. This was just after the last election, and the victim was Governor Smith's campaign manager.
I see.
When we arrived, I performed an initial examination of the body, without disturbing any evidence, of course, and it was clear from the pooling of the blood that the deceased's hand had been removed shortly after his death. We assumed, of course, that the hand was somehow related to the motivation for the murder, and focused our attention on that aspect of the crime initially. Although reluctant at first, the governor eventually provided a possible explanation for the missing appendage. Well, I think we can safely say that the hand was removed after death.
So the question becomes, what did the killer gain by removing the hand?
That is a very good question.
Any thoughts, Governor? Do you know of any reason that they would have removed Stefan's hand?
Oh, I don't know.
Perhaps they needed it for something. Maybe a biometric lock.
Did he have anything that was accessible by fingerprint? Perhaps a safe?
I don't know. He may have.
Well, you were close to him, weren't you? I mean, this was a very hotly contested election. Surely you spent some time at his house over the last few months. Do you recall seeing a safe anywhere?
I really don't know.
Watson, would you mind checking the car for something for me?
What could you possibly...
It's a little vial of green liquid. I've been working on a new method of checking for prints, and I'd like to test it out.
You never mentioned anything about...
Watson!
All right, fine.
Now, Governor, you asked me here to look into Stefan's murder, and I know there is something you're not telling me.
Mr. Holmes, I assure you...
Excuse me, sir. Please let me finish. I would think that given our history, you would know that you can trust me. Now, Officer Weathers is going to be here any minute. Whatever it is you have to say, let's have it.
All right. Over the last couple of weeks, I became aware of some indiscretions on the part of Stefan.
Indiscretions? Was he stealing from you?
No, of course not. But there were some, shall we say, questionable donations received by the campaign.
And Stefan was covering these up?
I think so. I just really didn't have any hard evidence, so it's just a hunch, really.
Where was the money coming from?
Well, I don't know. I just know that the people listed as contributors don't exist.
Taking money from dead people. I always knew you were a Democrat at heart.
Yes, well, you can see why I would prefer to keep this under wraps.
Yes, so the hand...
Well, I came by to confront him about the unusual deposits, and I happened to see him entering the building. He was carrying a silver briefcase, and it looked as if there was a chain hanging from it.
So the case was handcuffed to him?
I think so.
That is interesting.
Look who I found wandering around on the street.
Officer Weathers, thanks for joining us.
Of course. Governor, I'm sorry for your loss. Yes, thank you.
I didn't see any vial of...
So, Weathers, as you can see, someone murdered this poor fellow here in order to retrieve a briefcase he had handcuffed to himself.
Ah, so you discovered the rationale for a post-mortem remotion of the prehensile extremity of the superior limb.
What?
They cut off his hand.
Right. So, Holmes, why don't you tell me everything you know?
Everything? Where do I start? Perhaps history. The first writing system was created around 3000 BC during the Bronze Age. Before that is really a lot of guesswork. Stonehenge was actually built around that
About the case? Everything you know about the case.
Ah, yes. Well, not much, really. The governor saw him with it. It was silver, and it had a chain on it. We believe that it was probably handcuffed to him.
What's going on here? Did I enter an apartment or some kind of alternate universe?
Basically, Max, all we know is that the victim was the governor's campaign manager, and that he was apparently carrying something important in a case that was removed after his death, presumably by the murderer.
All right, now was that so hard?
And the governor here was just about to tell me that he saw the killer.
What?
Well, you watched him enter the building with the case, and I presume that he was already dead when you found him.
Yes, I found him just like you see him now.
So then you must have seen the killer leave the building somewhere in between.
Well, yes, I suppose I did. But I didn't know he was a killer at the time.
No, of course not. Now think back. How long did you sit outside the building before you came inside?
I don't know. A few minutes, I suppose. I was watching the sunset. It was very pretty this evening.
All right. Did you see anyone leave the building?
Well, yes, actually. There was one man. I think he was carrying a duffel bag. What did he look like? Black guy, maybe 5'10", 170. He had a tattoo on his neck, a shamrock, I think. Those are the Lucky Strikes, a Southside gang.
What is it, Holmes?
Governor, would you join me at the window, please?
Of course.
So, you were parked down the street to the east there.
Yeah, right under those trees.
And where did this man you saw go after he left the building?
Well, just down the street, I believe.
Away from you?
Yes, that's why I didn't get too good a look at him. I'll put a bolo out on this Lucky Strikes guy, and hopefully we'll get lucky. In the meantime, I need to get a crime scene unit down here to process the scene.
Weathers, hold off on that bolo.
What? Why?
I'm afraid the governor here has some explaining to do.
What?
I'm sorry to have to do this, but...
Do what, Holmes?
Unfortunately, the governor is our murderer.
Why, that's ridiculous.
Why else would you be deliberately sending us off on a wild goose chase?
I've done no such thing.
Well, you certainly didn't see a man with a shamrock tattoo leave the building this evening.
Holmes, how could you know that?
If he were watching the sunset in the west, as he claims, the man would have been severely backlit. There's no way he would have been able to see that kind of detail from a distance. And so the question becomes, why lie about it?
Well, Governor, what do you got to say? Well, you see, it was an accident, I swear. Sure it was. He was going to ruin everything, and there would have to be a special election, and the state can't afford to...
So you were the one soliciting illegal donations, and Stefan found out?
No, I mean, he was going to turn himself in, and...
So you killed him?
I didn't mean to. I just wanted to scare him.
I think perhaps you should save the rest of the story for after your lawyer arrives.
Yes, I suppose so. Let's go.
So, Governor Smith killed his campaign manager?
Yes, I'm sorry to say it's true.
That must have been difficult for Holmes, considering how close the two are.
Yes, he was quite upset about it. But a murder is a murder, no matter who the culprit is.
So, apparently good people can be driven to do bad things sometimes as well.
Well, as it turns out, he wasn't as good of a person as everyone thought.
How so?
In the following weeks, much more about the motivations behind the governor's actions came to light.
So, there was more to it than just campaign contributions.
There was indeed. But I'm afraid that story will have to wait until next week.
Well, I shall wait with bated breath until then.
Sounds good.
Tonight's Watson Files adventure was written by Scott Strosahl. Spencer Holmes and Dr. Watson were played by Michael Helgens and Greg Kilberger. Additional voices were performed by Steve Rimpici. Until next week, this is Craig Dahlen saying good night from Strobe Studios.
When we arrived, period.
Okay,
I'm going to assume it was a comma.
Yes, that's, the printer printed it wrong, I'm sure. And added an extra
And
space,
the double
too.
space, yes, it was very nice.
Oh, Governor Smith, how very sad.
Ah, so you discovered the rationale for a post-mortem remotion?
It's like a removal.
Okay, I would have went with removal, but remotion.
Yeah, but I wanted you to...
Post-mortem remotion? Excellent. Of the prehensile extremity. Wow.
Superior limb.
All right, I'm ready for that one.
Taking money from dead people. I always knew you were a Democrat at heart.
Yes, well, you can see how I prefer to keep this under wraps.
I'm glad that happened.
Well, as it turns out, he wasn't as good as a person as everyone thought.
That's good of a person.
I'll try that again. Well, as it turns out, he wasn't a good? I did that again, didn't I? Well, as it turns out, he wasn't as good of a person as everyone thought.
How so?
He was Republican. No. No.